Dr. Fabiola Douglas was born and raised in Venezuela before moving to Central Florida. She earned her Bachelor of Science degree at the University of Florida and her Master's of Science degree at the University of South Florida. She left the Sunshine State to pursue her dental education, earning her DDS and Certificate of Endodontics at Columbia University College of Dental Medicine in New York City, where upon graduation, she received the award for Divisional Excellence in Endodontics. Dr. Douglas is experienced in many areas of dentistry, including endodontics therapy, vital pulp therapy, internal bleaching, and endodontic microsurgery. In addition to her endodontic training, Dr. Douglas has extensive training in facial aesthetics through the American Academy of Facial Aesthetics.
I was down, but now I'm up. Yeah. It's all God.
You're tuned into the EG Dominates Dental podcast. We're coming to you today from Kissimmee, Florida, at the office of Dr. Fabiola Douglas, Apex Endodontic Studio here in Kissimmee, Florida. Welcome to the EG Dominates podcast. So excited to have you on.
I'm so excited to be here. Honestly, it's a long time coming, and I'm happy that we did this, but I'm also happy that we met each other. So
Absolutely. So
yes.
We've known each other for almost a year.
Yeah, it's been like a year.
I worked in the endodontic space last year, introducing new technology to endodontists and general dentists. And we'll get into that patient experience and the height of technology advancements in the endodontic space. But before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your experience working as an endodontist in Central Florida.
Okay, so I'm actually relatively new to the Central Florida area as an endodontist.
Okay.
I grew up here, and when I went to school in Columbia, when I went to school in New York, I did work for a few offices for a few years after graduation as an endodontist there, but it was a totally different experience. Like over there, I decided to work at different general practices, so I worked different general projects every single day. Monday was something different, Tuesday was something different team, different, kind of dynamic. So that was an interesting experience to have, and I think it taught me a lot about working with other people.
And this was in New York. Were you
New York.
in like the city, or were you
different offices? It was kind of like New Jersey. I would go to New Jersey a lot. New York, yeah. Pretty much like just in the two states, I would kind of take Uber across, take a train across. It was interesting.
Totally different experience than like here in Central Florida, right?
Yeah,
People
totally
can't
different.
even imagine or relate to that if they have not
No.
experienced that before.
Not at all. And honestly, it's interesting the way, I feel like that's way more common over there than it is here. Obviously, there are endodontic offices, and for some reason or another, I just kind of ended up doing, being the traveling endodontist back then. But eventually I kind of got a little bit tired of that life, bringing my bag with all my files and equipment. It was too much. So an opportunity came up in Central Florida area close to my parents. And I said, listen, I think I'm going to take this opportunity. It was actually an opportunity to purchase a practice. And I kind of moved forward with that. I moved down like about 6 months after finding the opportunity. And then that's what led me to be here.
That's what brought you home.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay. So you've been practicing here in Central Florida for how many years now?
It's been about 3 years now.
3 years.
Yeah, I've been back for 3 years.
Okay. And I met you probably towards the end of last summer.
Yeah.
And you and I went to a course together in Nashville. And I think that was a great experience, kind of eye-opening to see what else is out there. Because, at the end of the day, technology within the dental space is really designed, in my opinion, for two main purposes. Number one, it's designed to help doctors to become more proficient, and maybe more impactful with the time that they're spending on certain procedures and with patients. It allows them to have more time to build relationship with patients and to spend one-on-one time with them. And the second aspect of technology is from a patient's perspective, right? Like an office that has technology to me means, number one, they're investing into their practice. They're investing into their patients. And number three, in most cases, technological advances are things that are going to create a better patient experience and better comfort for that patient as well. So we'll kind of get into, what your experience has been since since that course.
Yep.
But really interesting about you. So you grew up in Venezuela.
Yes.
And
yes.
I know that Venezuela has a lot going on. I know a lot of people from Venezuela that have come to the United States over the last, decade.
Yeah.
So tell me, let's start there. So you grew up in Venezuela.
I grew up in Venezuela. I moved here when I was 11. So I was pretty young. I mainly did all my schooling here. At some point, I even forgot a little bit of Spanish because I was, just so immersed in the culture.
Yeah.
But we moved early on before a lot of the things that were happening. It was kind of brewing in the background. So, but we had, my stepdad is American. So he worked in Venezuela in the oil companies and just kind of was going back and forth between Venezuela and actually Alaska.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where he met my mom, and we kind of his job ended in Venezuela, and then we moved here. So that's what brought us here. But everything was brewing in the background. It's 2002. So back in 1999, that's around when Chavez was elected. That's when things were going south. So we kind of came at a good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you moved how did you guys decide that Florida was the place that you were going to end up?
We did not end up in Florida.
Oh, okay.
We actually ended up in Louisiana.
Wow.
So totally like a huge culture shock. Louisiana is totally different from the rest of the U.S., So we were in a little town. It was called Houma, Louisiana. There was really not much there.
Okay.
So we kind of, that was a good thing for us as kids, like me and my brothers, because we were immersed in the culture and had to learn the language, and we had no other choice. And I think that made us excel in the end, made us really nobody else could talk to us in Spanish. I think it would have come to Florida, it would have been a different story,
You easier or harder?
Much harder because there's so many other Spanish speaking, people here, and we would have been more hesitant, I think, to learn.
So did you go to high school in Louisiana then?
No. So we spent the first 2 years there,
Okay.
and then I went to high school here. I actually started high school in Orlando.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So hometown hero. She's a hometown Central Florida hero. I like that. Okay, so you graduated from high school.
Yeah.
Dad's oil business, mom dentistry, or no?
Nobody in my family is a dentist.
So you're the first dentist.
I'm the first dentist.
Okay, so first dentist.
Yeah. First dentist, doctor, anybody, nobody in the medical field in my family.
So at what point in your life did it hit you and you said, you know what, I want to be a dentist? Was it after undergrad?
My mom was a big influence in my decision to become a dentist. I think initially, I'm very artsy. I like to work with my hands. I'm always doing some sort of project. Everybody who knows me knows that. I always like to work with my hands, learn, I'm crafty. So
what do you like to make? What do you do?
Oh, I've done all kinds of things in my life, from baking, crochet, painting. So I used to paint a lot more when I was a kid and when I was in high school. Drawing. Now I'm getting into more home projects, obviously.
Wreaths. You got to get into the
Gotta
wreath
get into
business.
the-
I'm
yeah.
telling you, you can go to Joann's or Hobby Lobby, buy
Yeah.
all this stuff. You can make really nice custom wreaths,
Yeah,
stockpile them,
that's the next thing.
and then sell them. Or give them away. There you go. Give away to patients and
Right.
referring offices. Hey, here's a wreath for you.
That's a cute referring office present.
Yeah.
That's
An
so funny.
endodontic wreath.
That'll be the next one. With some
Okay.
teeth in it.
So
Oh yeah. So basically, I was always working with my hands, and my mom kind of guided me into, thinking about a career that would allow me to work with my hands and be creative and, be artistic, but also, make a living, obviously.
Sure.
So that's how I got geared into dentistry, and even since high school. So I knew that I was going to go into dental school basically. And, I took all the classes and did all the things that I need to do to get there. And I went to University of Florida. I studied food science and human nutrition, which was a track for dentistry at UF. And from there, got into dental school.
okay. So
Straightforward path.
Did you go right to dental school from the time you graduated?
No. Actually, I did a post-bac at USF. It was a 1-year post-bac, just medical courses. I wanted to strengthen my application. I don't know why I did that, but I hadn't even applied. I said, I just want my my application to be as strong as possible before I make this investment into applying to dental school. So
sure, kind of like almost like in other professions, you would look at that almost like as an internship before you get into the career choice.
yeah,
you
kind of
want
like
to, right?
that. Yeah.
How long was that?
1 year.
Okay,
That was
so
pretty
1 full
short.
year.
Yeah.
And then during that
Throughout
time,
that time, I was applying to schools. And I think I applied to a lot of schools. And it was like actually one of my friends who convinced me. She said, your DAT score is really high. I don't know why I just hadn't realized it, you know. She was like, you need to apply to Columbia. They look at that, you know, that's like one of the main criteria for them. So I applied and like surprisingly I got in, you know.
yeah, I mean Columbia, that's a huge accredited, well-known, college to go to, especially for your medical school for dentistry. So
I really wanted to go to New York. In a way, I wanted to be in a small class. So I knew Columbia had a small class. It was in New York, and I was like, this is it for me. I think this is the right path.
how many students in their dental program?
My class at 81.
81.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does that compare to other dental schools around the country? Is that smaller?
That's like, I think that's an
average?
average class size for most schools. Some schools have way more students. Some like newer schools have less. I haven't really checked recently, honestly. But at the time that I was applying, I think maybe like NYU had something like 300 something students per class. It's a lot, you know. So I like that aspect of Columbia.
Smaller, more one-on-one time. You get to know your professors and they get to know you.
Yeah. And I think Columbia does a really good job at picking their students, because everybody at least most people in my class we just kind of have that like similar personalities, and I don't know how to explain it, but it was a great time to be at Columbia, and you can see it even throughout the classes, you know, like the upperclassmen are a certain way. It's just like a really cool, I don't know how to explain it, but they do a great job.
Is there one professor that stands out in your mind as somebody that was most impactful for you?
Ooh. Most of my professors were really good. It's hard to explain. Columbia has a certain, I guess, culture, you know, where your professors kind of become, you know, your guides, like, to everything, and they're really like on your level. You know, they kind of, obviously there are these amazing, you know, well-known, like super smart people, but they just kind of come to your level where you're like, okay, I can actually talk to this professor and explain what I'm doing, even though maybe I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
They don't put
right
themselves
now.
on a pedestal.
They
right?
don't.
There's no
Yeah.
intimidation. It's,
Not everybody. You know, like most professors are pretty down to earth. Right now, honestly, I'm very horrible with memory, but I can't pick one person.
They were all great.
They were all great.
Shout out
For the
Columbia.
record.
Shout out Columbia. You're all great.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, so we go through the process, graduate from Columbia. Congratulations, you're a dentist. Mm-hmm. Now you're an endodontist. And when I look at, like, I work with a lot of different dental specialists as well as regular general dentists. Mm-hmm. And I'm always intrigued as far as how they decided, you know, what route they wanted to take and why. Yeah. You know, I mean, there's a dental office on every single corner at this point in time, in every single city in the United States. It's very, very competitive, right? So you have to be very strategic with not only how you market your business, but also the location of where you're located as well.
Absolutely.
And those two things really, I feel like, go kind of hand in hand with patients' decision to come to you, as well as getting and gaining referrals from coworkers, friends, neighbors, etc.
Yep.
So you graduated, and at what point in time did you decide to yourself, you know what, I really like doing root canals?
Okay, so it wasn't, you know, you explain it in a way where it seemed very simple, but it wasn't really like that.
All right, so give it to us. Give it to us.
So Columbia is well known for most of their students specializing, okay? And most students become oral surgeons. Like, I mean, we had 80, and I think 20-something went to oral surgery program. And then the rest did some other specialty, you know?
Okay.
We had a lot of general dentists as well, but mostly specialists, okay? I initially wanted to be an oral surgeon. I love science, you know, and weirdly enough, I went to work with my hands and do all this artistry stuff, but I love the science aspect of dentistry, you know? So I love anatomy, I love physiology, I love histology, like all of that nerdy stuff. I'm a nerd. Okay. Basically, that's the summary. So
You're owning it though. Good
I know.
for you. You're owning
it is what it is. At this point, I feel like in your 30s, you kind of own your personality. I'm a nerd.
There you go. But it's working for you. It's
Yeah,
working well.
it kind of is. So, I liked studying. So the oral surgery track I love the medicine aspect, and you get a lot of medicine. So that's where I was going with it. And to do oral surgery, you have to do, it's recommended that you do research. So I ended up doing research with the program director of endo at Columbia.
Okay.
So one thing led to another, and now I'm here shadowing the endo residents, doing research projects with them, talking. I mean, I'm spending like evenings and weekends with the program director doing research and cutting up teeth and looking under the microscope. And, as I researched more and as I did more endo throughout dental school, now then I became like the endo person, and all my classmates would send me all their endo cases so they could do the crowns.
You were the go-to.
I was the go-to.
Okay.
So.
And did you enjoy that? Did you?
I
like
did.
It?
Yeah, I did. And like I said, it's weird because I went into to do more artsy stuff, but endo is very technical. So
Yes.
It's totally not artsy in a way, but it is. I mean, a little. So so that's kind of how I ended up doing endo. It's just one thing led to another. I was doing research, and all of a sudden I'm applying to endo programs.
That's awesome. So for anyone out there that's watching this, that is thinking about becoming a dentist, or maybe they're a dentist and they're thinking about going back to school and becoming an endodontist.
Okay.
What, in your opinion,
Oh,
whoa,
we got a feisty one.
in your opinion, what were some of the what are some of the more challenging aspects of endo school?
Honestly, I didn't think endo residency was that difficult.
Okay.
I enjoyed my program. I think that's what it was. I had a good relationship with my program director already. So in Columbia, as a school in general, has a more relaxed vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So our program was very relaxed in a way. We had requirements and everything, but I never felt like this intense pressure or stress or anything like that. So I think I enjoyed it very much. And I think it's also the nature of the program, But I guess the hardest part was, getting to know yourself as an endodontist, like what tools you like to use. It's hard to do it in the beginning because you're just learning the technique. You're just learning, like, how do I do this root canal? How do I get to the apex? Like, should I shape it like this? Should I shape it this other way? And then there's all this other stuff like being thrown at you from like the endodontist outside. Like, no, you should use this. You should use that. This is better. You're trying to figure out like what works well in your hands. And everybody will tell you this while you're going through school. And even when you get out, what works well in your hands. And it's true. Once you figure out, you kind of like, that's what they were talking about.
And just repetition of doing it over and over and over
Yeah.
again. How many lifetime root canals do you think you've done at this point?
Oh God, I couldn't even guess. I mean, if you think about it, I've graduated 5 years ago. I mean, I work pretty much, let's say 48 weeks a year,
Mm-hmm.
and 5 days a week, and maybe I do 5 to 6 root canals a day. So
We're talking.
let's figure that out.
17,347.
Yeah,
That's
something like
right.
that. Did you really do that?
I'm just kidding.
I
No.
was like, oh wow, I'm
a lot.
impressed.
She's done a lot of root canals because that's what endodontists do. You guys specialize in one thing, and that's root canals.
Yeah.
And I think the root canals, for anybody again that's watching this has never had a root canal, you never really can know what that pain or what that experience is like before you get that root canal done.
Yep.
And so you, believe it or not, are like, you're on that short list, Dr. Douglas, of people that I hopefully would never have to meet or come in contact with. But if I needed a root canal, like that endodontist, you are like the most important person in my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so those are big responsibilities. That's really a cool position to be in, where you could be that needed, where somebody literally at their desperation, if they had your cell phone number, would call you at 3:00 in the morning if they could, because they're in excruciating pain and they want to come see you the next day.
The other thing about an endodontist I think is unique is that you see the patient really, most of the time you only see them once, and you have that one time to make that one impression in their life. Maybe they only get that one root canal ever in their life. And so you have this one chance to shape the rest of their life of what they think a root canal is, what a root canal experience is, what the pain after is, or, that whole entire experience of a root canal treatment. You have that one chance, So for me, at least, and for our practices is, the patient experience is incredibly important. You only have that one, that first that first impression, but you only get that one.
First impressions are everything.
Yep.
And people will formulate that first
and
impression
last.
within, the first 20 seconds.
Yep.
So it's more than just your communication that you have with that patient chairside, which is extremely important.
Yep.
But it's something that it's a whole philosophy. It's a whole approach to patient experience, meaning from the second you walk through that door,
from the second they answer the phone, they go to make the appointment. It's all about, to me at least, and I think, I don't know if it has changed throughout time, but right now where we are in our generation of dentists, that first phone call, their first Google search for you, that's their first impression of you.
The look and feel of your website.
Yep.
Is it easy to access? Do you have a QR code that takes you right to your
They haven't even seen you.
They haven't even seen you yet. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to find you and connect with you.
Yeah.
And then you have to make sure your staff is trained really well, because to your point, when they call the office to schedule, you want that 20-30 seconds initial on the phone to be a positive experience. You don't want them to be put on hold. You don't want for them to ask you a ton of questions necessarily that you could answer, that they could answer when they come to the office for that consultation. So there's a lot of different components of what that patient experience should look like, what you want it to look like. So I know that we're at a point with dentistry, and we talked about how competitive it is. And everyone always says, when it's all about the patient experience. But what people don't really realize is when it comes to the patient experience, it's more than just what you live and see in your office every single day. And I ask offices all the time. I've been asking offices this for almost 10 years. What separates or differentiates your practice from the one that's across the street? And don't tell me it's the coffee bar. Don't tell me it's that you've got the nicest doctor. Don't tell me that you have the nicest staff, because that's what everyone says. Right. So there's really two things that come down to it, and it's the personal connection that you have, emotional connection that you have with that doctor and the staff, and it's technology that they're using within that practice that not only showcases their commitment to reinvesting into their craft, but also making that patient experience better. So let's turn it to that segment, that part of the show now, because you have two practices. You just opened a practice recently in Winter Garden, and you've got this one down here in Kissimmee. And I know that there's a lot that goes into the build out and the branding of a practice. So talk to us about what your experience has been like that. With that.
Yeah. So with both offices, they're completely different practice models. So it was kind of a challenge. It's still a challenge on a daily basis to figure out how I want to present both practices and how I want them to, run. Also, I've decided, in a way, I've tried to build my personal brand so that I'm really representing both practices in a way, It's taken a lot of thought and a lot of, kind of going back and forth to figure that out. But I've decided, I decided on just building myself and kind of having the, kind of saying I'm here and I'm here. If you want to find me, this is where you can find me. So for Endodontic Sedation Center, it's a boutique style practice, fee for service, and we offer mostly there. We offer the facial aesthetic portion of the treatments that I offer. So really, I'm bringing a lot of the elements from Endodontic Sedation Center to Apex so that I can, I also like to bring that boutique style practice here. However, with this practice, I took over a different owner, and it's a lot of changing different
Styles.
models, like different ways that things were done. This is an insurance-based practice, so trying to kind of figure that out in terms of how do we bring that boutique style into an insurance-based setting. So it's been very interesting to do that. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's a cool challenge to have, and I think we're slowly making it really effective in this practice. So that's making me really excited.
That's awesome. So when you say boutique practice, explain to people what that means.
Okay, so normally when you go to your endodontist is because your general dentist referred you. You go in, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to get this root canal. It's going to hurt a lot, and then I'm going to leave, and that's it. What I'm trying to, and it's all about the patient experience again, what I'm trying to create in both practices is really, what happens when you when you look at the website, when you're looking for the practice, when you decide you're going to call, how that person on the other side answers the phone. What happens when you walk into the practice? Does the practice smell nicely, have this, like spa-like feel?
Yeah.
What amenities do you have?
That's
we have
what I like.
Yeah. So what amenities do you have? We have this little side table here where we offer you a little comfort menu, a spa menu where, you can get noise canceling headphones, chapstick, a little warm towel at the end of your treatment to wipe off. There's certain, little perks that you may not get at every practice, and you may think, or you may not even be thinking this is something that an endodontist is going to offer or a practice is going to offer in general,
which is crazy. So that's why it's kind of appealing too, right? Because you're like, oh, this is so different than what I'm used to. It kind of feels like I'm going to the Nordstrom spa,
exactly,
in a sense.
You want to feel like that when you're getting an expensive treatment. You should feel like you're going to a spa,
like you want to keep coming back for more.
Let me get another root canal. But that's what we're trying to, and to me, part of branding is, I think a lot of general dentists maybe don't realize this, is when you're sending your patient to another endodontist or to another specialist, this is an extension of you. It's a reflection of you.
Yes, it is.
When you're sending them over there, it's like you have to know that they are in tune with your brand. And so that when they come back and say, oh my God, that practice was amazing. The doctor was incredible. Thank you so much for sending me there.
Yes.
That's my goal. And so that's what I'm trying to create at both practices. So I hope that our referring practice, and I know that some referring practices, have expressed to me that this is how they feel. And I love that, because I want to have that relationship. I want the patient to have that that experience and that amazing, patient experience. So
sure.
That's what we're going for.
That's great. That's awesome. So let's talk about the aesthetic side of things, because I find it very interesting. I used to work with a lot of endodontists, and I'm friends with a lot of endodontists. And I know that that's something that's very unique, because when you think endodontist, you think root canal, and then we have another side of the business is really focused on aesthetics and Botox and fillers and all these other things.
Yeah.
And I've been getting Botox for the last 10 years, believe it or not. I'm actually 68 years old with all this Botox. It brings me down. I'm looking like mid-30s sometimes, right?
You're looking good.
And you are my Botox doctor.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of Botox in the last 3 or 4 months. Do I win the award for most amount of Botox in the forehead?
Definitely. We need to work on certain things. You are a hard one, but you're very expressive. I think it's, I've tried, but there's some things we still can do. So don't worry.
So what are the other services? Talk to us about that.
Okay. So first I started with Botox because I wanted to treat TMJ issues. So like treating the masseter, temporalis, to alleviate some of that grinding and clenching so that we don't get these fractured teeth and have to extract and whatnot. So I get a lot of these cases where we have cracked teeth because of, a lot of grinding and clenching at night. So
if somebody gets Botox for TMJ, number one, is it painful?
No.
Okay.
We use a very small, insulin needle, 30 gauge. It's one injection if you were doing masseter. So it's one injection, a lot of units, and
And how long does that last?
Like any kind of Botox, about 3 to 4 months.
Okay. So you have people that are
You have to
coming
come
in
back.
every 3 to 4 months,
Yeah.
and they start to kind of feel it wearing off. I'm
Yes.
guessing they get headaches when they wake up in the
Exactly.
morning or jaw pain.
And
Okay.
they'll feel like their teeth hurt when it's wearing off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So addition to Botox.
So I started with the Botox for more of the TMJ issues, but it kind of evolved into facial aesthetic Botox, like for aesthetics. And from there, I took a few courses together with the Botox for dermal fillers. So I kind of got I really wasn't like that interested in it. It just kind of happened where I was taking the course. I'm like, this is kind of cool. For example, we can treat Botox. We can treat gummy smile by doing a lip filler and a little bit of Botox on certain muscles around the nose.
Okay.
And that can help with the gummy smile. So certain things that really apply to dentistry that kind of just, I feel like it's a natural progression into getting into aesthetics. From there, I started seeing patients, and I started seeing, a lot of patients need a little bit of lift. And so I started to do more like the threads. And as I kind of like got more into this world, I found like more information, kind of one of the equipments that we have, our devices we have is one of the Photona lasers. Okay. And it has we use it for endodontics, but it has some facial aesthetic features. So I wanted to make, like use of this device, like full use of this device. So I kind of got into the skin resurfacing side of things with that laser. And from there, it kind of evolved into RF microneedling. And this kind of, these kind of treatments just enhance the other aesthetic treatments like Botox and dermal fillers. So that's something we need to try next.
I think we do. We need to do something. I can't keep pumping gallons of Botox into this forehead.
We can't.
Man. These crow's feet.
We gotta let your natural collagen,
Yes.
like let your own body produce some natural collagen.
We do.
Yeah,
we absolutely do. So how did you get into this? Like, what was, you're an endodontist. Like, what made you decide, like, you know what, I'm really into this aesthetic stuff. I want to start taking some classes. I want to start offering these services.
Yeah, I think the more I learned about it, the more interested I got. And like I said, it's just in dentistry, I think it's a natural progression. We learned so much about the face. We know too much about the face, like where your muscles are, how they act, like the blood vessels. We inject the face daily. So to me, it was just natural, and I just got more interested in it. And I kind of, the more I learned about what it can do and how it can look very natural as well, the more I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I think especially in the Winter Garden practice, which is a more boutique practice, I saw the patient population was, more interested in that kind of treatment. So just naturally,
younger population.
Yeah, naturally got into it.
I've lived in that area for about 14 years, and it's a beautiful, great area, Winter Garden, Florida.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed, especially over the last, say, 10 years, is it's really kind of become home to a lot of people that are either first-time home buyers,
okay,
or you get people that get married and then they buy a house and they start a family, and it's a lot of young families. It's a lot of young families in that area, and so that probably fits in very well with the demographics.
Yeah,
so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to endodontics, and we take a look or talk about technology and the changes in the endo space, there hasn't been a lot of changes. There's been one big one.
Yeah.
I know that the laser is something that a lot of endodontists use for root canals as well.
Yeah.
But talk to me about, what you kind of decided to do with your practice that a lot of endodontists are making the change or adding to their practice in order to heighten or create a better patient experience.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you?
So, there was a big wave of this.
You said wave. Like a gentle wave?
Well, before I get into that, kind of. But before I get into that, dang, I set myself up.
You did. It was perfect though. We didn't even plan that.
I know. But basically, in endodontics, there was this wave of, this like advanced irrigation. Okay. And I'm always learning new things. I'm always trying to keep up with, the latest and greatest in endodontics. So at that time, there was a big talk about lasers and whatnot. And I was not an owner. I was just an associate, So, I wanted to invest in this technology. I was not an early adopter because it had been out for a little bit, but I wanted to be one of the, at least in my practice where I was at, they weren't using anything like this. So in any practice that I had been at, actually in Central Florida. So, or before that. So I decided to go ahead and purchase a smaller laser, just to kind of try it out and see how things went. And I saw that there was definitely a huge difference. Okay. But I still wasn't to the point where like I'm all about efficiency. So how can I make this a more efficient process? How can I clean the canals, take out less tooth structure and make the root canal just less painful and more efficient, So a lot of things happened between then and when I started in this practice. Before it was Apex Endodontic Studio, I worked with Dr. Mark Dreyer, and he is, incredible. Like, he is all into technology. He has everything. He had everything in this office. So he had a Photona laser, and then he had a dental wave as well. So in that process of working here, I had the opportunity to learn about the dental wave. I was not one of the people who was like, I was against the dental wave. I was one of those endodontists. I know.
Really?
I know. It's crazy to think about now, but
for what reason? Is it because you felt like it was taking away from what you went to school for so long to do? Like,
no,
okay.
No, it's for the reason that I think most endodontists are, or mainly most endodontists are against it. You think it's going to take you more time. It's going to make it more cumbersome. Now you have to build this platform, and it's just going to take so much more time and have to figure it out. It's that mentality, So when I started to actually use it, I thought, when I started doing root canals, I had to figure it out. It took me some time to finish a root canal, It's going to take me some time to adopt this new technology. But at the course where I met you, I kind of like heard a lot more information from people who are actually using it. And then I started to kind of, put it into practice, like maybe 2 cases a day. Then I started with 3. And then I'm trying to figure out, I only have 1 gentle wave. So like, how am I going to go from room to room? I have, so in a way, it's trying to figure out how to use it, but also how to fit it into your schedule.
Yeah.
So once I figured out that, one, I could actually, it's the building of the platform and the actually holding the gentle wave is, I can delegate that. Then it made me more productive because during that time I can see another patient. I can start another treatment. I can numb. I can do another consultation. It's actually buying me time because while those 8 minutes that it's running and they're building the platform, I even taught them how to build the platform, so once I, build up the tooth, if there's decay or whatnot, then they can just, it's 1, 2, 3. It's really straightforward. If it's a hard one, I'll do it, but once I started to delegate more, and that took a lot of power from me. I'm very bad at delegating. So then it freed so much more time, but it also made my experience as an endodontist so much easier. Like, if I did this maybe 5 times this week, there were some calcified canals. I could not for the life of me get into that canal. And I said, let's just run gentle wave. Don't dry the canals. When I come back, let me try again. File goes right in, it makes my life so much easier instead of, spending, like my fingers are not calloused anymore. Like that says a lot, I barely use hand files. It's changed the way that I work, but also it's changed the patient experience here because they're going in. First of all, once we start the gentle wave, which is about less than 10 minutes into the procedure, it's like a relaxing sound. So the patient most patients fall asleep, it's just like, shh.
Yeah, so it's painless.
It's painless. Mm-hmm. Most patients fall asleep during the procedure. And by the time that's done and we're finishing up, they're kind of surprised that it's over. You know, they're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to come back for this treatment. It allows me to do 1 visit root canals. And then there's the post-op calls are like non-existent. Like we don't get them.
That's incredible.
It's strange to get maybe one, you know, a week, maybe not even. Ooh, welcome to South Florida.
Big lightning, big storm out there.
It will be sunny in like 10 minutes.
It will.
Literally.
So how do you explain what gentle wave is to a patient? Like, how do you explain somebody that comes in? Now, a lot of people, obviously, everyone has a phone in their hands. Anyone can Google something at any point in time. If you Google search endodontist, one of the top searches that comes up is gentle wave, right?
Yeah.
Because it's newer technology for that area of specialty.
Yeah.
When a patient comes to the office, if they are not privy to what gentle wave is and how it works, how do you explain it? Do you give patients the option, like, hey, you can do, you know, in our practice, we do gentle wave, we do laser, we do traditional, and these are how all three of them work. What do you do in your practice?
So the way that we do it here is like multi-level of educating the patient. You know, first, my referral has all this information about gentle wave. Like the front page of my referral is about gentle wave and how, you know, how it makes our treatment different and how it makes your experience different. The second thing is when they walk in and, you know, we usually present fees and whatnot, the front desk, they explain what gentle wave is if the patient asks. Then they come into the room, and as our assistant is explaining the treatment and, you know, we're going to be using the gentle wave today. Oh, what's the gentle wave? Then a whole another round of explaining, you know. So it's multi-level. And when it gets to me, patient has already heard it at least 3 times.
Sure.
Then I kind of explain it as, and I explain it even during the treatment.
Explain it to us. Like, for example, I'm a patient in the chair. Like, how you come in, how do you explain it?
I try to do it as simple as possible. So, you know, the tooth anatomy is very complex. So our instruments cannot reach all the spaces in a root canal or inside of your tooth. So the gentle wave, what it does, it just reaches all those nooks and crannies that our instruments cannot reach by flowing a lot of solutions through the tooth. So that's pretty much. And then if I'm really trying to dumb it down, it's just like pressure washing your tooth.
On the inside?
Yeah, on the inside. So it just depends how much, you know.
What's interesting to me, and one of the things that attracted me to that technology was that there's a big consumer demand, and you see it because, like, if you go to the website, there's like a doctor locator.
Yep.
And you can put in the zip code, and it'll populate the doctors within, you know, a 25, 30 mile radius that have that technology in their practice. So when I saw that, I was like, I bet that there's a lot of people that are doing searches. And come to find out, last year, I think that last year, just in Central Florida alone, there was like over 3,000 hits on the website for people that were looking for a provider in Central Florida.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of people.
Absolutely. I've had patients who are only here because we have the gentle wave. Yeah, like, I came here for the gentle wave. I'm like, okay, that's amazing that you even even thought about looking this up, you know? That's awesome. I love that. I always say, and I told you I was a skeptic. I was not the person who was going to be using gentle wave. I want to say this, but I drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh my God,
I drank the Kool-Aid.
You didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I think that you just saw the value that it can provide, not only for yourself and your team, but also a patient experience. Yeah. Right.
And
like, how do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, and the aspect of delegating part of the gentle wave to the assistant, I think it's empowering for them, you know, like they're like, okay, I'm part of this, you know, I'm part of this treatment. Like, you know, I always tell them, okay, how was the seal? Like, was it good? They know to call me if we need to fix something with the seal. It's kind of neat, you know, because we're all involved in this process, and it makes it for a really cool, experience and a cool day, you know?
Yeah, that's great.
Teamwork.
So you're open between both practices, you said 5 days a week?
Yeah, 5 days a week. Mm-hmm.
So in your spare time, let's talk about, like, what do you enjoy doing when you're not working?
Yeah.
Where can we find Dr. Fabiola Douglas on a Saturday or Sunday in Central Florida?
Oh, a Saturday? Well, during the week, I enjoy working out a lot. So I spend most of my morning working out, and then I come to work. But on the weekends, I kind of do a little bit of everything, honestly. Obviously, we have the parks, so I have, you know, season passes to the parks. We enjoy going around.
So are you Disney,
both,
Universal, or SeaWorld?
I don't have SeaWorld, but which one do I enjoy more? Yeah. Ooh, I love Universal. I think the rides.
Me too.
The rides is just it's just superior.
We go to Universal probably once or twice a month.
Oh my god,
Because I've got 3 kids. So
yeah.
And the great thing about living in Central Florida is like, you know, we have the annual passes. So on the days that we decide to go, we will get there an hour before the parks open.
Yep.
I've got the special premiere pass.
Okay, nice.
Do you have the premiere?
Shoot, I don't remember.
Does it come
what
with free
I have.
valet parking?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
here's my
no,
tip
you
to
got the
you.
fancy one.
You got to upgrade.
Really?
Because it is so worth it. To valet, Universal costs $75.
Oh my
$75.
god.
But if you're a premier pass holder, valet parking is included.
Oh,
So we
wow.
always park valet. You can get into the parks an hour early. And what we'll do is we'll get to the parks, you know, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll stay until noon, and then we come home, and we have the rest of the day to do whatever we want.
See, I do the opposite.
Oh, you go
I
afternoon
go,
person.
yes,
Okay.
when it rains like this and everybody's leaving and they think that, you know, it's over.
Yes.
That's when you go because nobody's there.
So
and also-
what's your favorite ride?
Okay, right now, Velocicoaster.
Definitely
For sure.
Velocicoaster.
Yeah, for sure. Before, I used to work at Universal, actually.
Oh, you did?
I was in Harry Potter World, yeah.
What?
When I was in college. Yeah.
I thought you looked familiar.
Right? I had on all the costumes and whatnot. Yeah, it was like.
Were
it
you
was
like
cool.
in the castle, or were you?
No, I was in the. Yeah, I was in the 3 broomsticks. Yeah, it was cool. It was a good time.
How long did
I
you do
love
that
working
for?
in the parks. It was like a whole summer.
No kidding. That's
yeah,
super cool.
it was
Okay.
so fun. When it first opened, it was like just opened.
All right.
Yeah, so you get. It's the cool thing about Universal is you have this like you have a choice of what costumes to wear. So you have like 3 choices or something like that, from where I remember. And you go to the back in this huge room with all the costumes. It's really neat. Like, and
For the cast members to wear?
yes,
Really?
yes, and you know you have like a locker. You go pick up your costume, is nice and clean, and then when you're done with your shift, you drop it off and you put your regular
And
clothes
they
back
dry
on.
clean it all and do
Yeah.
everything for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool. At least I was like that when, you know, a few years ago.
All right.
Maybe
So
10 years
she's
ago.
big on the parks.
Yes.
What else?
Working out, we love kayaking. I was telling you I have an inflatable kayak.
Where do you go kayaking at?
We love King's Landing. King's
King's Landing's
That's
fun.
fire. Yeah.
It gets a little crowded up there now.
Yeah.
But I've been there several times. You got to get there early.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get there early. We have so many beautiful springs in Central Florida in general.
Yeah.
You know.
And
so
I can't go any further any longer without talking and
Addressing
showing this
this?
mascot that you have. So tell us, who is this?
this is Loki.
Low key,
he
like
is
low key or Loki, as
like
in the Marvel character.
Oh yeah, Marvel character.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He is our therapy dog here. He mostly sleeps, honestly. I'm not going to lie to you. He just walks from, he has a bed in every room. So he just walks from room to room to room, just passes out.
So he's the therapy dog.
Yeah.
He's the emotional support animal.
Yes. For everyone, the staff, the patients, me,
And they love him.
everybody loves him. Yeah.
How old is Loki?
He's 1.
He's 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So he'll be your partner for a long
For
time.
a long time.
Partner in crime.
Yes. Yes. I hope so.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
So you've got your hands in a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneur, business owner,
Yes.
endodontist, aesthetic specialist, and you have a podcast yourself.
Yes,
You got
that's
the
right.
Rooted podcast, right? We were talking about this a couple months ago when you decided, like, hey, I'm going to come out with this. And I remember watching your first episode with Dr. Doe,
Yes.
and I was like, this is awesome.
I was
This
so
is
nervous.
really, really cool. You were nervous? You looked
You
like
know-
you had like main character energy.
I
I was
love-
like, she's doing it. Look
I
at her.
remember you telling me that, and I loved that. I thought that's kind of a cool thing to say to somebody. Like, I love that. But, you know, I honestly, like, that was not even in my radar, and it was not my favorite thing to do. I just didn't think I had it, you know? And then I kind of just started doing it and started talking, and it's my favorite thing to do now. Like, I enjoy it so much, and just, I like the human connection aspect of it, you know?
Getting to know somebody on a personal
Yes, yes. And so I think, you know, even the relationships I've built with Dr. Doe, with Dr. Neer, with Dr. Belknap, like, it's kind of cool to just connect on that level, you know, and like, yeah, I'm interviewing for a podcast, but at the end of the day, it's just a conversation, you know, and I
chance for somebody. The whole purpose, I think, of your show and mine is I wanted to give specialists and general dentists a platform
Yep.
so that people could see who they are as a person. And what you're really showing is this. You're showing heart.
Yep.
You know, that's going to be the main thing. That's that emotional connection to the general consumer
Yeah.
or patient within that town or that city that you live in. You don't want to just be somebody that they know, from Instagram or from Facebook or from YouTube, but you want them to know your story, and hopefully, they feel that connection to you as who you are as a person, so that, in the event that somebody needs your services, in the future, that you're going to be the first person that they think of, the first person that they're going to call. So when it comes to like your legacy, I know it sounds kind of crazy to talk about like, what is your legacy going to be? Because you're just getting started, right?
I know.
But what do you want your legacy to be in the end? What do you want to be known as? What do you want to be known for?
I think that's always constantly evolving because, like I said, not only in my personal life, but in my professional life, I'm involved in so many different projects. I think that's going to evolve as I grow as a professional, Now, if I think it's hard to answer that question, because if I think now, what do I want my legacy to be when I'm like retired? I think that's going to change, I can't really say right now. I would say my legacy in the next 5 years, maybe.
Start there, yeah. 5 years from now. What are you working on short term, the next 5 years? There's
definitely different levels to that too, One level would be in my, my small environment of my practice, I want my staff to appreciate me and to feel like, we have grown together. That's one of the biggest things. Like, I want to look back 5 years from now and say, wow, like we all built Apex Endodontic Studio. We all built Endodontic Staging Center. Like, this is really cool. Look what we did,
Yeah.
In terms of, for example, with my referring dentists, I want to build relationships with them. I want to I want to feel like 5 years from now, wow, we've been working 5 years together. Remember when we saw this patient and we had, this other thing? Like, I like that. I like to be connected. And then in terms of like social media, I think that's going to evolve as well. It evolves every month, to be honest with you, because I think I have so many ideas of where I want to take it. I think eventually maybe just reaching out to more people, to more dentists in general, maybe to more of my colleagues, to be able to connect with them as well. And just kind of, I think there were certain obstacles that I went through that, were really hard, especially when I first graduated, and just navigating the world of, associateship and, going into ownership. There were a lot of fears there. I think maybe trying to help others who are in that same position, I think that would be one of my, kind of like projects that I would want to work on. I don't know what capacity, but I think that's probably coming.
What changes do you think are going to happen in the dental industry, even specifically endo? What do you think technology will look like in, say, 5 years from now?
Well, it's really cool to think 5 years ago, I wasn't using any of the stuff that I'm using now. And I mean, I can tell you, I struggled doing a root canal, and I hope that this helps, like, like the recent graduates of endo programs. It was not easy, and I struggled through cases. I struggled navigating how to work in a dental office, it just thrown in. So, but my life now is, in a way, endo life is so much easier because I use this technology. All this technology has come out. I am working with certain new products that I think are going to they're going to change the way we do and view endodontics. It's going to take some time, but especially educating other dentists about these kind of products.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to take time, but if, for example, somebody like me who has the platform to do it and, who's at least I'm trying to build the platform to do it, I want to get that education out there and just kind of just see where it goes. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you came on the show today.
Yes.
It was great. I mean, I've known you for a year, but to be able to sit down with you and to hear your story and the things that you're working on right now, you are a remarkable person.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to call you my friend.
Yes.
And I wish you nothing but the best of luck.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. Hey, I just want to thank you for tuning into the EG Dominates Dental podcast. It's getting more popular. It really is. It's growing. Yeah, I think this is
That's
like maybe
awesome.
like the number 1, number 2 dental podcast in Central Florida. So hopefully we can grow that to be number 1.
Let's
So,
do it.
hey, the Rooted Podcast. Go check out Dr. Fabiola Douglas YouTube and her Instagram page. What is your handle?
Dr. Fabiola Endo.
Dr. Fabiola Endo.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and we will see you next time.
I was down, but now I'm up. Yeah, this all got this.